Hello everybody, welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic, coding well, and today we'll be doing a box office breakdown from this past weekend, which saw Top Gun Maverick get #1 at the box office after being out for 5 full weeks, beating out newcomers Elvis and The Black Phone. But not only that, this film also has finally crossed the $1 billion mark, all without needing communist China in order to do so. Obviously, that's going to be getting a lot of attention, but we also have the second week numbers for Lightyear, and things are looking really, really bad for this Disney Pixar flop. We can now, at this point, project the film to lose roughly around $100+ million. Where exactly it falls in that mix is going to depend on how it does from this point forward, but let's just say a 65% drop in the domestic marketplace, the place where it should be doing so much better, where it has not even gotten to the $100 million mark yet, even though it's only been 2 weeks. This is a film that should easily have gotten to that point. Yeah, let's just say Disney, Pixar, and the mainstream media need to start being a little bit more honest about why it is that this film is not doing very well at all. So we'll talk about that and a bunch of other films that also had other weeks and also some other drop-offs too. But before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, lap that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on turn. That way you never that way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. We like to do things live here, so you're welcome for that. But anyway, thank you all for understanding not having videos for the last few days, as I was with family in St. Louis. Just got back about an hour or so ago, and yeah, getting back to the box office breakdown. So Top Gun Maverick, of course, the biggest news of the day, $30.5 million. What I do think is interesting here, though, is it's almost as if there is something going on, because look how specific that number for Top Gun Maverick is. 30.5, $176. So right now, as of the recording of this video, the film has only made $176 more than what was made by newcomer Elvis. And the reason why I just find that a little bit interesting is because normally when you have estimates out, normally it's a round number of some sorts, because there's going to be an update at some point in the future with the actual weekend numbers. These are all based off of projections. But I can't help but think to myself, I feel that Paramount is trying to strong arm maybe a little bit. I mean, $1 billion, don't you think that was a good enough story for you, Paramount? I mean, come on, take the win there, but you have to take all the win out of the sales of even a film like Elvis from Warner Brothers, which, just be honest here, cost way more than it should have and may not even make its money back, at least according to the numbers we have right now. Who knows? We'll see what those week 2 numbers are looking like, but I mean, I'm going to be interested to see what those actuals end up being, adjusted to Monday and Tuesday of this week when they actually update those numbers, and to see if Maverick ends up still being on top. I think it very well could. I mean, for all we know, Top Gun Maverick actually did much better than the $30.5 million that they are projecting for the weekend. No matter what, it's a huge hit. It's a huge success, but I don't know. I decided to add that anecdote there because I did think it was a little interesting here that it was just $176 separating the two. So Elvis or Top Gun Maverick will come in the #1 spot. Either way, Maverick in the #1 or 2 spot after 5 weeks of release with major films like Jurassic World Dominion and Disney films like Lightyear is just phenomenal. And again, a 32% hold from the previous week it's still doing incredibly well. Its per theater number is still insane. And again, kudos to Top Gun Maverick and to Tom Cruise. This is his first $1 billion film, and this is the first $1 billion film that we've had in quite a while. And this film now has easily passed up Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which has actually fallen off a cliff. I said that there was at least a chance that the film could reach $1 billion. That chance is gone. It only made $7 million this week worldwide. So yeah, it's obviously law of diminishing returns. It's going to be hitting that $950 million number and maybe making a little bit more. Again, that was what I was thinking earlier on, but then I thought, you know what? It was making $20 million and then it dropped to only $15 million. So I said, okay, if it keeps this, then it got half to $7 million, and so it's not looking very good for that film to get to the $1 billion. But let's just be honest, Doctor Strange still a massive box office hit, still getting hundreds of millions of dollars for Disney, and guess what? They're going to need that money because Lightyear is going to cost them quite a bit. But before getting into that, let's go ahead and go into each of these films. So Top Gun Maverick, as you can see, has officially crossed the $1 billion mark, $521.7 million domestically, $484.7 internationally. And so even though this film is definitely much more of a domestic hit than international, it is still holding its own very well internationally, especially in countries like the United Kingdom, where it's made $70 million, Australia, where it's made almost $40 million, Japan, $33.9 million. So again, this is a film that is just continuing to perform. It hasn't slowed down at all, so it's going to be interesting to see where this film ends up. It's already made 55% compared to its first 2 weeks, meaning that it's almost doubled the amount of money, and I think by the end of its run, it will have doubled the amount of money that it made after the first 2 weeks of its release, because the legs have been so incredibly strong. So this is a train that's going to take a lot to stop. In fact, the only thing that's going to stop this film from making as much money as it continues to make is time, because eventually everyone's going to have seen it once, twice, 3 times, and then they're going to start to promote the physical media release. And again, the general thing that happens to most movies, they just eventually will leave theaters. That's the only thing that's going to really stop this film, because there's nothing as far as competition that's going to really take away in any massive degree the kinds of people going to see this specific film. Much different story for a film like Lightyear, which doesn't have much of an audience already. But then you got, next week you have Minions coming out, and Minions is going to definitely, take over and own the, the family market. And that, to me, I think is going to be a pretty major test, because one of the arguments that they're trying to use to justify why you have a film like Lightyear doing as poorly as it is to say, oh, well, families, they're just so used to being at home and watching the films at home now, etc. But if you still have films like Minions, and you still have films like Sing 2 and others that are still making money to some degree, it seems to kind of throw a wrench in that. And so, yeah, some hard truths that the media and Disney are going to have to accept is that maybe, just maybe, factors like Tim Allen not being in the film and you deciding to go political once again, not just with any movie, but with a kids movie nonetheless, trying to push identity politics nonsense, especially after the stuff you pulled in Florida. Yeah, let's just say that I think it's probably more so to do with the fact that you have parents that are waking up saying, yeah, I don't want my kids anywhere near the nonsense that they are doing right now. Anyway, so we also have the new film Elvis coming out. So $50.5 million for Elvis. Very, again, would have been impressive numbers if this had been a lower budget film, as I had thought. I really did think that this movie was gonna cost a lot less than it actually did, but it cost $85 million. That's right, production budget $85 million. So opening up to 50.5 actually is not all that great for this movie. And to be honest, with films like with quotes and lines from Tom Hanks delivered in the way that they are in the trailer, we are both like little children. I understand that the actual real life person had an accent, or at least was from another country, and that's what Tom Hanks is trying to get at. But he's just chewing up the scenery in every single movie that he's in nowadays. And I feel like he's kind of taking away, at least in the trailer, this is how it comes across, he's taking away the performance that Austin Butler's giving, and it seems like he's killing it in this film. And I've heard some mixed things about it. I heard some positive things, some not so positive things about it. Ultimately, though, box office is going to determine whether the film makes its money back or not. Right now, because of the budget mostly, not looking like that's necessarily going to happen, but we'll wait for those week 2 drop-offs to actually be able to say for sure one way or the other. Jurassic World Dominion is still doing quite well, $746.6 million, but I'm going to call them out, because whereas Maverick has crossed $1 billion without China, saying screw you to the Communist Party of China, Jurassic World Dominion has relied upon 114 million of its international number to get to the 746.6 million. So even if it didn't have that international number, it's still, if it didn't have that China number, it would still be at its break-even point. It would still be making some massive profits to boot. But the fact that it did open in China, that it did placate China, and this means that roughly $100 million went directly to the CCP. Hey, I'm going to call Universal out for that, just like I'm going to call out Disney or any other company that does work with the CCP in China, because, again, they are not just communists, but also murderers to boot, amongst so many other human rights violations. So we'll go ahead and continue to call them out here on the OMB Reviews channel. We also had new releases in Black Phone, or The Black Phone, I should say, a new horror film. This film, $35.8 million opening weekend with a roughly $17 million budget. Looking pretty good for this film to open to such a number. Had no idea Ethan Hawke was in the film until just recently. And obviously, when you look at the poster, if you pay attention close enough to the eyes, you can see Ethan Hawke underneath that mask. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting, to say the least, to see exactly where this film ends up by the end of its run. And also interesting that they are promoting it as from Blumhouse and the director of Sinister and Doctor Strange. Again, interesting, interesting dynamic there. Two very different films, I would argue. But hey, Black Phone, I've heard some pretty good things about it. Then we get to Lightyear, $152.3 million. Remember, this film cost $200 million. $200 million. And the reason why is because Pixar, or rather more specifically Disney, especially since they bought Pixar, does not know how to spend money wisely. They throw so much money at all their projects, and let's just be honest, it doesn't make their films look all that much better. It doesn't make their film stories that much better. And so you almost ask the question of, you're forced to ask the question, why are you just wasting the money? Is it because you just so happen to have the money? Is it because you're just used to spending this much? But a film like Lightyear to cost $200 million to make, and that's not even taking into account any marketing costs, not to mention the fact the studio doesn't get 100% of their box office receipts. This is a really bad sign. I mean, this is a movie that needed to make around $100 million more, or needed to be $100 million more where it is right now, if it even wanted to have a prayer of breaking even, because it would need to have doubled that. And usually my range is somewhere between 50 and 70%, either doubling it or dropping off to a tremendous degree, which I suspect this film probably will fall a little bit more into, especially with Minions competing against it next week. So it'd be interesting to see where this film drops in that capacity. Again, having a drop of 65% in its second weekend, not good at all. Not a good look for Disney. And so they have a huge hit in Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. It has made hundreds of millions of dollars. But Lightyear, I would not be surprised to hear Disney say, hey, guess what, everybody? We're going to release it on Disney Plus, and then try to continue the narrative that people were just waiting for it to go on Disney Plus, and we're making tons of money from that. So therefore, don't worry about it. This is now the second film where they've released it in theaters. Remember, the last Disney Pixar film they actually released directly in theaters itself was Onward at the very beginning of the pandemic. Because that was at the very beginning, it lost $200 million. This film is set to lose over $100 million. So things have not gotten that much better for them. It's almost like they're, it's almost like they're picking up where they left off in a lot of ways. And I don't know why they're putting some of the best films that they've released. Obviously I saw the film, I did a review for the film, but I saw the film Soul, and I was like, that's actually a pretty fun movie. And then I've heard a lot of great things about the film Luca, but that was also a direct to Disney Plus movie. And so it's weird that they're choosing those films to put onto their streaming service, which may have actually had a chance because they were actually good and got good reviews and got some praise. Whereas films like this, where it's almost as if they want to push these films that have more political agendas and political messaging in them, out into the public, it's again, makes you ask a lot of questions about the people running Disney right now. Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness has slowed down a lot, so it's looking right now to cap out a little over $950 million by the end of its run. It made only $7 million this weekend. A lot of diminishing returns. Probably going to see what internationally, altogether domestic international numbers, maybe making another $3-4 million next weekend. So I think it's going to eke out $950, but not much more than that. And then also we had Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just one thing about this is that it's actually at $89 million according to Box Office Mojo. So this film continuing to hang around, even though it had one of the worst release schedules of all time. Looking at the actual box office numbers themselves, looking at the chart over at OMBReviews.com. Go check out OMBReviews.com. It is my website where you can get box office tracking, and also you get access to my podcast that I do, and on the homepage you actually get my streaming schedule. Some people didn't realize that I actually stream. I actually have extra streams, and I'm going to have an extra morning stream tomorrow. I'm going to have an extra OMB Report stream tomorrow. So my second channel, the OMB Report, where I talk about news and politics through a independent and Catholic lens. We're going to be talking about the Roe v. Wade decision and many other things because, there's still more decisions and cases that need to be figured out. But with all that being said, let's look at these numbers. And so let's talk about Lightyear. I know that's what a lot of people are going to be watching this for. So at the $152.3 million mark, that's where it is right now after 2 weeks. So based on the projections that I have plenty of videos explaining my methodology of how I got to these numbers, and these numbers are not gospel by any means, but they tend to be pretty accurate, or at least the films tend to fall somewhere between these numbers here. Based on those numbers, based on my projections, the film is going to make somewhere between $217 and $300 million worldwide. Yes, that's right. Disney Pixar film may be capping out around $300 million, but because the film cost $200 million to make, and its break even is roughly $500 million, because you have to take into account marketing and also the fact that it only gets about 60% or so of the box office by the end of its run, you're looking at a film that's going to lose somewhere between $170 and $117 million. So somewhere north of $100 million. Looking likely that it could, especially if the drops continue. Maybe you'll see the film close to $150 million loss by the end of everything. And so, not a good look at all for Disney Pixar, and couldn't happen to a better company. Right now, it's sitting at $208.5 million in the red. Yeah, and based on the numbers, based on the lack of numbers, I just do not see, in competition for Minions next weekend, for instance, I don't see this film being able to recover by any stretch of the imagination. As I mentioned with Elvis, though, with that high production budget of $85 million, the $50.5 million it's made still has it $97.2 million in the red. So this is a movie where, unless it has really strong legs with good word of mouth good word of mouth, similar to what we saw with Maverick, it's going to be very hard for me to see this film be able to get that money back. But again, we're going to wait for the second weekend numbers to see exactly where it falls. But right now, not off to a great start. Again, hearing mixed things about it, which is not a good thing if you want to have a film that's going to act like Maverick. You want everyone speaking praise, high praise, saying go see this film like they are with Maverick if you want to have those kinds of numbers, or at the very least that kind of a performance. Because even if you have a slower start than a film like Maverick did, if you have those kinds of holds, you can edge out over time to still make a fair amount of profit. You look at the Black Phone coming out, the $35.8 million cost around $17 million. There's different reports of different numbers, but the average is about $17 million. So right now it's around $4 million in the red. So this is a movie I think that by the end of this week, it's going to make its money back if I had to guess. You also have Jurassic World Dominion, which at $746.6 million worldwide at this point means that it's made around $200.4 million in net profits for Universal. Again, calling you out, Universal, for the $100 million that you've basically given to China. But big news, of course, is Top Gun Maverick. $1 billion. Again, pretty crazy stuff here. As far as the biggest films of the year, the next one would be Doctor Strange 2, which does not have a prayer at this point to hit $1 billion. You then have the Batman, which made over $700 million. And then after that, yeah, you don't really have much except for Spider-Man No Way Home. So there's a similarity, I think, that you can find with Spider-Man No Way Home and Top Gun Maverick. Both of those films are pretty good, pretty entertaining films. I would say Maverick is a much better film than No Way Home, but both of them also have a dynamic of nostalgia done right. And I think that is a key that Hollywood just does not quite understand. We've seen nostalgia done very poorly. Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness is a great example. They had so much potential with that movie. When you open up a multiverse especially, there are so many things that you could do, and yet they decided to do some of the dumbest stuff possible to push messaging, to push identity politics, and also just to push a bad story to boot. Where Spider-Man No Way Home actually pushed a very fun story that a lot of people enjoyed, enough where it made $1.8 billion. And now the next billion-dollar film, it's not Doctor Strange 2, even though it had a strong opening and still made tons of profit. Again, almost $300 million of net profit for Disney, so gotta give credit where credit is due. Still was not able to get to the $1 billion mark, whereas Top Gun Maverick was able to finally be that number. So do I think that there's another $1 billion film out there this summer? I do think Jurassic World Dominion has a shot. I do think that the international market especially is going to be helping that film out a lot. So we'll see where those numbers fall. But yeah, it's not looking nearly as strong as far as its week to week is concerned as a film like Top Gun Maverick, because where Maverick has had strong holds every single week, Jurassic World Dominion has been dropping a little over 50% for the last couple of weeks. And so even though it did not drop nearly as much in week 2, ended up dropping around 60%, it's still dropping over 50. And so law of diminishing returns, if it's cutting itself in half almost every single week, and it's not seeing those 30s that Top Gun Maverick is seeing, sometimes less than 30, sometimes in the teens, it's not likely then going to have that type of momentum. But again, still very possible. It's definitely going to get to over $800 million by the end of next weekend. The question is, how close to $900 million is it by the end of next weekend? And does it have enough momentum to push it all the way to the edge? Maybe. You also have other films that are coming out this summer, films like Thor: Love and Thunder, but I think Thor: Love and Thunder might suffer from something very similar to what you saw with Lightyear. Not to the same extent. I do think that Marvel property, that Marvel name still has a lot of power. However, I think that you're going to see that movie potentially come in underneath Doctor Strange 2. And let's just be honest here, when we're thinking about films, and we're thinking about franchises, typically you would think that a film like Thor: Love and Thunder should be an easy film to be able to beat Doctor Strange 2. Then again, we live in a very interesting time with Disney making some very interesting, mostly bad financial decisions and choices, specifically with a film like Lightyear, again, set to lose $100+ million at the box office. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the numbers. What are y'all's thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. Are you excited that Top Gun Maverick has crossed $1 billion? Do you think Jurassic World Dominion has a shot? Again, outside shot at this point. And then also, what are your thoughts about Lightyear just bombing, just, again, getting destroyed? Yeah, it's going to make over $100 million domestically at some point, but at this point, it's going to be, I don't know. I'm actually most excited to see where Minions does compared to this, because if Minions has a better opening weekend, if Minions is able to pass this film up even after a couple of weeks, I think that will be pretty darn funny, because I don't even like the Minions film, but I know how I feel about Disney and their push of identity politics in their nonsensical products. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, have that fire button. Honestly, all amazing and beautiful people. Again, check out my website for streaming times and schedules. Gonna do an extra stream, I think, tomorrow, hopefully, and then also recording podcasts with John Flickinger on Tuesday. So if you are a member of the Army of Asgard level and above on Patreon, Subscribestar, or the Keeper of the Bifrost on YouTube or locals, make sure you check out the Q&A question post that's been posted. You can ask your questions there. Anyway, your eyes are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to my June Keeper of the Bifrost and Chosen of Valhalla level members: Brandon, let's go Brandon, Christopher Bowman, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Father Luca, Mike Jackson, for the win, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Orange Hat Reviews. Make sure to check out his YouTube channel. He just hit 1,000 subscribers. Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel as well. Stan Andrian, Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel. And also, of course, the amazing Tina B, Empress of the Universe. Check out her YouTube channel, especially her show, Soup to Nuts, that she does with the amazing Stephanie B. Thank y'all very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And a huge shout out to all of my subscribers as well over on Subscribestar at these levels: Matt 317, Storm Tracker, the R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, and also, of course, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. You guys are amazing. And a last shout out to my locals members. We have Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan. How about a hockey player? We have Mike Jackson for the win once again, Robert Barnes, and Brett D90. So I want to say thank you again for being my members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and the Chosen of Valhalla levels. If you want your name specially shouted out at the end of every single video and live stream, please check out my links at the Patreon and Subscribestar. You can find those in the top link in the video description, the Willow link, as I like to call it, where you can also get access to things like giveaways, things like the podcast I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, and other cool stuff like that. Anyway, thank you all very much for supporting me for the month of June. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.